What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Stereotherapy. I'm your host, Lisa, and of course, we've got Justine too. This is the show that showcases the importance of music and mental health. As always, you can head over to our website and check out what we've got going on over there, and that'll be at www.stereotherapypod.com. And you can also check out our Instagram. We're at stereo.therapy and say hi to us. Check us out over there. We got some cool reels. Today, we are talking about the importance and impact of something near and dear to so many. We are talking new metal, baby. But before we get into that, Justine, how's it going? We're almost at the end of spooky season, but for you, it's spooky season year round. So there's no worry
Yeah.
there.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm kind of struggling. I'm sure with a lot of other people too, just everything that's going on in the world. Um, so I'm kind of mentally just trying to chug along and do what I can and all that. So
Oh, yeah, I feel you. Our hearts are just with anyone right now, also struggling just with everything going on and just day-to-day life. Like I kind of told you before we started doing this too, like just everything going on in the world right now, and then just life in general, going like to the grocery store and life in that aspect. Like, oh, things are just so heavy. So I guess we're just sending love. I know that sounds so cheesy, but anyone that needs it, because it's a lot and it's heavy. So hopefully this little episode can get your mind off everything going on if you're struggling with anything heavy too, because sometimes you need that distraction. I guess that's the best how we can put it. And not sounding like insincere in that either, or try to be like, oh, listen to this, but definitely just sometimes you need that little distraction because there's a lot going on. So I don't even know how I even go into our episode with that, but just sending love to everybody. I'm just going
yeah.
to say that. But I guess, with this episode and talking about it, and this was something that was definitely on our radar for a little bit. And I don't know if the timing was right, but it finally is. But let's just get into like this genre made such a massive impact, and definitely in those early 2000s, which is wild to think about. Like we're in 2023 and like you see the resurgence of like Limp Bizkit, definitely on TikTok, and Corn too. I see everybody use that like y'all want a single thing for TikTok. So it's just wild to think about because I love to see it, but it's just like 23 years later. And this, again, like this is an episode we wanted to do for a while, and I'm so glad. And I guess for you, Justine, how has new metal, the genre, or whether it's bands, have made an impact on music and the scene for you?
Well, for me, new metal was my first intro into like harder music.
Hmm.
Before new metal, I wasn't really listening to anything with any kind of like screaminess into it. So new metal was a bridge for I think a lot of us millennials getting into what boomers thought was scary.
Yeah.
It was loud, the members looked scary, and the music videos were just very alarming to the older generations. There's a lot of crossover with new metal, industrial, and goth for early 2000s goths like myself. New metal led me to Nine Inch Nails and Marilyn Manson and various goth bands that were around at the time, which led to my parents being very afraid for my well-being because my brother told them the names of the songs of the bands that I were downloading on LimeWire. So you could say new metal is what led me to be who I truly am today.
I agree with you, the scariness, because it's so funny. I've told some people in the previous podcast or just whatever, I've mentioned this before, but I legitimately had to hide my Corn CDs or any CD like that of this era of music in my pillowcase because one, the parental advisory was just a no-no in my house. But then two, it was like, right, the nature of it. Like you see someone like Jonathan Davis or like use it like Marilyn Manson. I know like the industrial side like was huge, like you just mentioned too,
Mhm.
and like the goth side, like definitely people in my family, some were like into that, like my cousins, which were awesome and it was really cool. But the fact like my parents were just like, no. And I think the big thing for me was the change where one Christmas I finally got like Issues by Korn. And I was such a horrible kid because I used to like look at when boxes came and like presents. So I had seen one Christmas that it was hidden up above my fridge. I knew it was a CD and I had asked for Issues for Christmas, and I opened it up and I saw like that little rag doll thing or whatever on the cover. And I was just like, oh my God, my parents are finally getting it. They're finally getting it that I love this music and that I'm going to be okay if I listen to it. Like, it's okay if I like this and what is deemed scary. And I think, like, again, the genre just had such a hold on me in the worst way. And like, maybe some people, I guess, looking at me wouldn't think so, because it's like, again, I don't fit. There's a lot of stereotypes, but it's like, I think you can look at however you like, because
Yeah.
definitely in middle school, high school, I was not someone I guess you would think would listen to a band like Korn and think they were so important in their life, or, even Limp Bizkit. I loved Limp Bizkit growing up. And I think it's wild to think about that, but it's just, again, whether I was hiding these CDs or rushing home to MTV. And I think that there's something about this genre. And again, it just really spoke to me growing up. And still to this day, I put on these records and really feel the same way that I did when I was younger. And I know, again, I said it before, but I will forever be into anything that is like aggressive and gravitate towards that. And I feel like a lot of us kids that were in high school in the 2000s or middle school in some way gravitated towards this style of music. And whether you were into it or not, someone you dated, family member, they were definitely into this new metal wave that was taking over. Like even the likes of TRL, which is wild to think about because of just how like what TRL was. Like a lot of the boy bands and pop stars, and then you would have a band like Limp Bizkit or Korn on there. And it's just as I think new metal was just something I don't think we would see literally. I don't think we've seen a genre like this in a long time, or we ever will, that mix of metal and rap. Like I don't think we will. And that's why I think it was so special growing up in that we saw so many different genres. And this was definitely one of them. And I think a lot of dudes wanted to be like Fred Durst, whether it was the style or the attitude, they wanted to be like that. There was something about that red cap, and I don't know, but again, I loved Limp Bizkit, and I know being a girl reading those lyrics, you're like, how? Especially like Nookie. I had no idea immediately what Nookie was about. Okay, and I know someone's gonna be laughing. I don't know. I wasn't sexually active in high school. Like I don't know what else to say. I didn't know what Nookie was. I just thought it was a fun song. And then you look into it and you're like, oh God, like why am I listening to this and loving Limp Bizkit so much? But I don't know, it was something I gravitated towards. And I again remember being in high school and after school picking up the chocolate covered starfish and hot dog flavored water album and talking about it with my friends. And it just is something I loved. And I found them because of their cover of George Michael's Faith. That's how I found Limp Bizkit. I had no idea that they had more music, but I heard that single and I was like, all right, I dig this band. But again, you think about like Woodstock 99 during this era and Korn headlining and Limp Bizkit just absolutely going apeshit in the chaos that ensued there. But this music just really paved the way for, I don't think again, like we'll ever see this. And I think like Deftones for me were another band is like always just like they were known as makeout music for me too. Although I was not making out with anybody. Again, I was not, but it was something about Deftones that were so wonderful, but it's just like I could picture those moments with them. And I think the Deftones just completely changed the scope of music as I knew it. And I know so many felt that same. And again, Deftones to this day are one of my all-time favorite bands. And I love that so many, whether it's TikTok or discovering these artists all over again for the first time. I mean, because that's just so cool. Like I know you've seen that on TikTok too, Justine, right? Like all the Limp
Oh yeah.
Bizkit stuff. Like it's wild
It's
to think.
all over for the younger generations, which has been hilarious and like, wonderful at the same time. And
I,
oh, I've
I
loved it.
in like we have Six Sad World now, right? Too. That's like the When We Were Young, but it's like the new metal version. And it's like that one is still just as popular as When We Were Young, which says a lot too. A lot of people are so excited. And that's another one I got to try and find my way into sometime, but who knows? They're so expensive. But we got to talk about, the impact this genre has made on the mental health. And again, they say this genre has been known to help and provide an outlet for emotions, and definitely anger being one of those emotions, and relieve stress from those listening to this. And I have to say, like, I absolutely agree, because when you hear a song like Break Stuff, or even Blind by Korn, there's a sense of, I don't know, like release that comes from it. And I just feel like this genre is full of that release you were looking for. And when you look at the main artists of the genre, you get it. Again, like much like heavy music in general, you are left with just this image of some think this is a dangerous thing, and when reality is so therapeutic to so many people. And I think that's why, again, this episode is so important, much like our Slipknot one, if you haven't listened to it, because it has such low listening. And I never want to like plead with people, but I think that's such an important episode to kind of show that although something might be scary to you, it could be really therapeutic to a lot of people. So again, if you skipped on it, go check out Slipknot, because they're a band that admittedly is grouped into this new metal, but they're technically not new metal, but they're grouped into it. And it's like a weird line dividing them, but I don't know. I think that's just important. So I have to throw that out there. If you haven't listened to that one, give it a listen. Like, please. I don't know what else to say. Um, but again, like we have to talk about, like, we'll dive into some of these. And I know we have Jonathan Davis of Korn. He and Korn was one of my favorites. Like, Justine, like, I don't know, were you kind of into Korn, or did you like
Oh
Korn
yeah.
at all? Oh, well,
Oh yeah.
cool. All right, good. Again, I'm so surprised we have not talked about that. That's what's so cool about this. We always find out, like, yeah, we kind of like similar. Jonathan Davis was one of those that just such a presence about him. And he was one of those trailblazers, and still is, that we talk about with this genre of new metal. And he has said so many occasions that he's so tired of losing people to this horrible disease of mental illness. And Jonathan hasn't been shy about talking about his panic attacks, anxiety, his bouts of depression that he goes through. And this was an interesting quote that I found where Jonathan Davis said, "Thank God I had my music to pull me through. And I don't think uh, that without it, I would be here today." And he was saying, and I think that's just is what this podcast is about. And I think it says so much about to have that male perspective on mental health and make that music connection. And he has said, again, like, it's one of the most powerful things in the world, and it is the power to heal people. It is the power to bring people together, no matter who you are. And it's just a beautiful thing. And it's how that is his antidepressant. That is everything to him. And I just really wanted to include that quote, because I think seeing someone like Jonathan to be so passionate about music, tackling topics in in music that so many connected with, and I have to think that's why that music became so popular. And I mean, that was my kind of drug of choice. Like, I'm kind of with him in that. Like, I wasn't one of those kids, not that I was a goody two shoes, but I wasn't doing drugs in high school. And for me, music always was that drug. And I think to have him kind of be open about that, I think a lot of people can relate to that, like how powerful music is. And I think, Jonathan still to this day preaches to people that it can get better. And sometimes it takes medicine, therapy, and whatnot, but it can get better. And I think we need more people saying that message, because when you are at your lowest, and I know you can relate as well, Justine, that you don't think it can get better. And I think to have someone out there kind of tell you, look, no matter how shitty it is, it can get better. And I think Jonathan was also upfront about the passing of his late wife, who was deeply struggling with her mental health, and why he has advocated for those struggling as well to have compassion and empathy, and how they aren't bad people, and then they are just simply suffering, which I think is so important to take any of Korn's songs. And you can hear that cathartic release Jonathan Davis has in his music, and Korn as a whole as a band. And I think that's why his fans even if it was something different, really gravitated towards. Justine, like, do you think a band like Horn would have that cathartic release with people? And you think that's why they were so popular?
Oh, I definitely think so. There's a lot of us that music, like you said, is like our choice of drug. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but
Right?
like
I know.
I was the same way. I didn't do any drugs. I considered myself straight edge for the most part in
Yeah.
high school. So for me, yeah, definitely music was my vice. That's how I got through everything. And for the amount of us that happens to feel music in our bodies more than your average person, like you definitely can feel something in the words and in the vocals and in the instruments that hit, for you. And you just kind of know, like, that's what this is getting at. This is why it's helping me. It's, in a way, like music is like a cure for some of us, and yeah, I think I wouldn't be surprised if that happened a lot with people in corn.
Oh, I love that you said that because that is such a thing. And I think it's so many people I know are healing and heal from a band like Korn because they're just so aggressive. And I think that's why I loved them too, because they were just so aggressive. And I think they also went against like in my house. So I was like, I'm rebelling. I'm liking this band. And sometimes I don't know what Jonathan Davis is saying all the time, but I really feel it. And I think the Adidas tracksuits, which I guess they're having an Adidas line, which I'm like,
They
oh my
do.
God, I need to get that for myself. But I think it's just growing up and having that. And I think, uh, just so good. I haven't seen them in so long. So I need to figure out like, whether it's Six Ed World or whatever, like I need to somehow, because it's been a hot minute. But I think another one, and this may be a surprise to some people, because I feel like no, people are either hit or miss with this band and this front man. But Fred Durst of Limp Bizkit, and I'll go deeper into my love of Limp Bizkit back in the day. But Fred Durst has been a huge advocate for mental health awareness and wanting to end the stigma surrounding it and encourage others to seek help and make it a priority. Fred Durst has been open about there being a lot of pain in his life and being bullied for most of his life. And that iconic song, Break Stuff, that we all know and like I still love so much, and no matter what, was meant for people to stand up for themselves against bullying. And I guess whether it was, I guess not so good people around you in your life, it was that anthem for that. And you hear that. And, I guess we think about Woodstock 1999, when all these bands were at the top of their game and that performance that was blamed on the band. And I know Fred Durst really took that hard, as he has said in interviews, and they wanted to kind of calm that scene of Woodstock 99 that took place. Everybody knows it. If not, you can go watch the documentary. It's really interesting. And you see the behind the scenes stuff and how Limp Bizkit kind of became that scapegoat for everything that happened. And I don't think that's fair. I mean, again, that's just my opinion. Like, but I just think that there were so many things technically that went wrong. And it was just like, oh, we can blame them because of the music they play and how they are. And I think Fred Durst has been open about how that affected him mentally. And I think when really you wanted to blame the organizers for what they did. And I think it was just interesting that Fred Durst was really open about that affecting them even then, and how like MTV would talk badly of them. And I think you had this band Limp Bizkit that was larger than life playing this huge festival, and 90% of the people probably wanted to go to see Limp Bizkit. Like that's who they were going to go see. And I think, of course, they play a song like Break Stuff, and you have a lot of fans being male in the crowd. And again, like, like we weren't there. I don't know personally, but I do think that when you hear Fred Durst talk about that moment, it's something he really struggled with. And I think, I don't know, as a female fan, I even was mad at one point about Limp Bizkit in that time. I was like, what the hell, man? Like there's women being, assaulted. And again, I had to take a step back later and be like, hey, they're on stage and everything else that was set, they weren't telling anyone to do that and be a part of that. And I think it was just, I don't know. As much as this genre was really great, there was a lot of toxic masculinity back then. And I think, Justine, I gotta know, what are your thoughts on Limp Bizkit? Whether it's that genre or that time back then, anything you heard about Woodstock 99, or like just now they're on TikTok and making their own little resurgence, which is wild.
I honestly never got into Limp Bizkit.
No.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, I do remember like the absolute commotion that happened from Woodstock 99,
Yeah.
but I don't think I remembered what caused it. I just know that like I just remember there being like angry fans or something and it just got out of control and stuff like that. And that's why we never had any more Woodstocks ever again.
Yeah.
But I don't think I ever like looked into it more,
Oh,
and I just never got into Limp Bizkit. I was never against anybody that liked
right.
them. It just wasn't a band that I got into, you know?
I still to this day don't know how I did, because again, you listen to the lyrics, like what the hell am I? It's like uh, I don't know. It was something about them, and I really don't. I don't know. Like it's weird when I think back on it, and again, it was Faith, their cover. I was like, I like this because I knew George Michael. I was like, oh, this is cool. It's a hard rock one, and I think later going into that and just the iconicness again of like the red cap, and but even Fred Durst being like, I just wore a red cap. I had no idea it was going to become like the fashion for guys like at my shows. Like I had no idea. And I think the thing about Woodstock 99 that's interesting is that a lot of it was the organization of that festival. Like if you watch the documentary, and anyone, again, if you haven't, go watch it. I think it's Netflix. I don't know. I got to see what it's called. Trainwreck or something. I don't know, but I'll link it in the description. But a lot of it was the organization. So they put it on an airbase field instead of what they originally did to cheap, make cuts. Everything was so high priced. So like a water, $6, whatever it was, right? Like it was, so think of like right now how like the cost of living sucks. In that festival, instead of it being pretty cheap, so people were obviously staying there and camping out. So instead of staying where they thought they would, like on a field or something, they were on some concrete. So it was hotter than hell. You couldn't afford to eat. They cut cost of sanitation crews. So porta potty sewage was coming out of it. There was mud. So by the second day, I think Limp Bizkit was the second day when they came out, people were so filled with rage because they were hot, they were hungry, they couldn't afford food. There was shit literally in the mud. And this band comes out, Limp Bizkit, singing Break Stuff. And people just went nuts. And riots happened and chaos and violence. People were ripping off plywood at some point. And again, the organizers wanted to blame Limp Bizkit, that it was because of their heavy music. And I think when you look back at Woodstock, what the original one was, and then look at these bands that played, like Korn played, I think Rage Against the Machine played, Limp Bizkit, like all these bands that were aggressive bands. And then I think you had like Jewel thrown in there. But I mean, you had like that, and they took a lot of blame for that. And I don't necessarily believe. And look, Limp Bizkit, like I said, with songs like Nookie and Break Stuff, you can easily place some blame. But I think, I don't know. I will not let any slander on Limp Bizkit for that. I won't. I will, even though it's weird that like I adored them. I know they're touring again, so I might have to catch them. But and sadly, Justine, I know you won't be joining me then. No one else I know will, because I don't know anybody else. So if anyone else, if they make a resurgence, you want to go see some Limp Bizkit, like I will do it. I'll do the Roland dance with you. Like we will go see this. But and I mean, we gotta bring up, but I know you like this band, so it's okay. We can bring it up. We're gonna talk about Deftones, specifically Chino, the lead singer of Deftones, if you're not sure and you're somehow stumbling upon this. He has been really open about therapy and how for a while he had some fear with it, and how people viewed others and view him as mentally unstable if he went to therapy, and how he tells others it won't make you seem weak, and cites his family relocation from LA to Oregon and when he was younger. So again, like just like you say all the time, Justine, like our events in our life can contribute to our mental health. And I think it's so important. And I think Chino has just been so open about wanting to end the stigma later on in the last couple of years as well. And it's a healthy thing to do. And I think we need more of it. And I think, and like, just like you said, with like before Justine about our events, but do you think it's a good idea to have someone like Chino of the Deftones and the Deftones are larger than life, but someone being open about therapy, do you think that could help end our stigma? Like, do you think that's something we need to see more of?
I definitely think it's something we need to see more, especially when it comes to men.
Mhm.
And like he is a very beloved
Yes.
person in the music industry, and I think that's super important. So it's one of those things where it's like if you're one of those people that are kind of on a pedestal with your celebrity or musician wise, I think it's super important to talk about it because men are still so like we're starting to break through that whole idea of toxic masculinity and
Yeah.
all of that, but we still have a ways to go. And the way to go is to have more people that people are going to listen to talk about it. So I think the more, males that are very beloved and, by the public eye talks about it more, the more we're going to see men be like, oh, okay, if he can go to therapy and it's fine,
Right.
then I can go to therapy. And I know that seems like very not very deep, but here's the
No.
thing, like that's like honestly it tends to be how a lot of us think.
Mhm.
If somebody who's very important to us says, therapy helps me, or taking antidepressants helps me make it through my day. The more you talk about it, especially if it's somebody that's very beloved, especially if you're a man, the more we're going to be able to break through that. And the more people are going to actually seek help.
No, I agree with you there. And especially like someone like Chino, who is like, God, whether it's the Deftones, oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. There's a project. Oh my God. I swear, everybody, I love this man more than I'm seeing like this project. I can't think of it. Oh, Crosses. God, thank you, God, for my brain. Thank you, musical brain. But even that, even because somebody I know would never let me live that down. But I think even that is like he's so huge with that, right? Too. So it's someone like that, I think, is so important to say things like that because of the fact that I'm someone like that. Like if someone famous or someone musically, especially musically, is, again, I hate to bring him up again, but someone like Anthony Green, who's out there and open about their struggle, you're like, okay, if they can do it or they've got it, I can do it. I can do the simple tasks. So I agree with you 100%. And I think, especially a very male dominated fan base that any of these bands we've talked about have, it's so important. And I mean, of course, we cannot talk about new metal, mental health, and the impact without talking about Linkin Park. Because I know some people were a little bummed on our 20-year. We did not include Meteora. And I don't know exactly why. I think we just included so many, but it was
I
still an
think
important
we were
record.
just, I honestly think we were thinking about doing an actual Linkin Park episode. And then
Yeah.
I think it got away from us.
Yeah, I think it did too, which sucks, but I think this will help it a little bit and we can, sum it up best we can. Cause I thought about that too. I was like, oh, I know like some people contacted me and I was like, listen, obviously we love in my like Chester is so important to the music world and just so the mental health community and I can't like I mean we have to talk about Lincoln Park and again such mental health trailblazers and advocates and as everybody's aware we tragically lost Chester and yes although we didn't know him personally I feel we all felt that loss that day for so many reasons and I think that was one of the few celebrity deaths that caused me to pause in that moment and get choked up. Like, I remember where I was when that happened. It just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I think what Linkin Park did for new metal scene is something that I don't think we will ever see again. And the way, especially the way music is headed these days. And I think Chester was an inspiration for millions by being open about his own struggles. And Chester really showed that mental health struggles are a constant fight. And even when you think you've turned that corner, it's unlikely you will stay in that corner forever. And you have to stay vigilant as each day comes for you in your fight. And I think that's just such an important message because it's so true. Like, I know me, I have so many ups and downs. Like right now, I'm in a down. I'm going to be honest. I may not seem that way, but I'm in a weird phase of my mental health. And I go through such, like, there's some moments in my day, or one day I'm great, the next day I'm not. Or maybe I have a stretch of 2 great days and I have a stretch of like 4 bad days. So I think it's really important, as much as it's horrible and we wish Chester was still here, but to maybe look at some of the things when he was still here with us, what he was trying to advocate for with mental health, and that we have to be careful in those moments. And again, like Chester was saying, how making One More Light was like therapy and helping him against those demons that he was fighting, and how badly you just wanted to enjoy those little things like getting up in the morning and being a dad. And Lincoln Park, honestly, I didn't know this, and maybe I was living under a rock, but they launched a website and tribute to Chester, offering suicide prevention and resources. And I'll remember to link it in our on our website description, whatever. If for anyone else that wasn't aware of this, because apparently there's resources, it's a great site. I visited it. Again, I had no idea. So admittedly, like, I'll be honest, big Linkin Park fan in the beginning of their career. Towards the end, I kind of fell off. So maybe that's why, but still such a huge staple in my life. And this band just truly made such an impact on my life. And I know so many others. And again, it's just I can still envision that video for crawling no matter what. The sink with the bugs or whatever that crawls. And I think just seeing, like, do you agree that it's kind of like important to have someone again like Chester, larger than life, especially in Lincoln Park, but Chester himself, kind of be open about that and say, it's a constant battle with mental health. Do you think that's something important that, again, we wish Chester was still here, but that legacy of Chester?
Yeah, absolutely. I know, I wasn't the biggest Linkin Park fan. I liked them, but I didn't
Hmm.
like deep dive into it. But I
Same.
remember when he passed, it really messed up a lot of people that I knew. Like,
Yeah.
it hit really hard for a lot of people. And I think the fact that he was even open, the fact that it is a never ending struggle, because it is, like, you know, even with me, like, I have not self harmed or attempted in a very long time, but that doesn't mean the thoughts aren't still there. Um, it's something you never stop battling with. Um, and I think a lot of people forget that, and people like Chester, me, we not that I'm the same, like, you know what I mean? Like, Chester,
Yeah.
way beyond me, but like, people like me and Chester, we are open about it because we don't want people to struggle with it as alone as both of us can feel it sometimes, and unfortunately, he ended up taking his life because he finally was probably just tired of that up and down battle, which all of us that deal with these thoughts deal with. And that's the thing, like, things can seem totally fine and like everything's great. That doesn't mean we're not struggling, and I think that's another thing to take from what happened with him, is that you can be open, you can seem okay, and you're not, you know? Um, and you just never really know when something's going to happen and it's going to make you feel like there's just absolutely no way out. So the only way we can do better with this is just to keep talking about it, and that's why, like, I try to remind people as well. It's like, once you've been in that place where you get like that, especially if you struggle with various, mental illnesses or something that people don't realize is, especially if you're autistic, or ADHD, we struggle with suicidal thoughts a lot.
Yes,
And
guilty.
especially if you're high masking, like me, and other late diagnoses, um, because the more you're trying to keep up this front of like, I'm like everybody else, I'm totally fine, everything's fine, you eventually crash and you start to do self-harming things, or you make attempts on your life. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, because of, especially if you're a high masking person, or a lot of people try to make it like, oh, well, you're fine. Like, you're not like somebody who has like level 3 autism. Um, you're doing great for yourself, but they don't understand that it's more internal for people that are high masking. So when things are more internal, you tend to keep everything in. You feel more alone, especially if you're late diagnosed like me. You didn't, nobody talked about going through the same things that I went through. So I really felt alone, and that sticks with you. And so anytime something goes on and it's really bad and it feels really bad, it feels like rock bottom. And it does sometimes feel like you can't get out of it. And you just never know when that's going to happen, when the trigger is going to happen where it feels that bad. And all we can do is talk about it with each other, having those resources of people that have the same conditions as you, to know that you're not alone in it. Therapy, medications, it's just, the conversation is so important. And I think with Chester, especially, again, that just brings that to light, that no matter where you seem like you're at, doesn't necessarily mean that's where your headspace is.
No, absolutely. And I think whether it was Chester, Corn, Limp Bizkit, Deftones, and I'm sure so many others in this genre have spoken on it. And I think it just shows that on the surface, these bands were larger than life, but everyone we've brought up so far had some sort of struggle. And I think it's just, it's just so sad to know that Chester is no longer with us, because his voice was unlike anything. Like, again, like I'm with you. I was not the biggest Linkin Park fan. And what I mean by that is, like, I know there's some people in my life that are massive, like fanatic, and I love
Yeah.
it for them. And
Yeah.
me, I enjoyed them. And actually I have a connection to Linkin Park because the album Meteora, when it came out, I remember I pre-ordered it. Because that was the thing back in the day, to pre-order and it would come to you. And I remember I was really looking forward to it, but sadly, that release day, I got a call and I lost my grandfather, and he lost his battle to his own mental illness. And I remember I didn't even think about pre-ordering the CD, right? Because it wasn't even on my radar that Meteora was out. It wasn't even, but I remember coming home and realizing that I lost my grandfather, who I was so close with and one of my all-time favorite people, and forever one of my favorite people, who struggled a lot in his life. And I always admired my grandfather. And I remember one of the things to make me feel less alone was going to that mailbox and getting Meteora. And it came out, and I got to get it because it was pre-ordered and it was in my mailbox. And I go into my room and just listen to it. And everything that was going on in me, and the grief of my grandfather, and losing his battle to mental illness and putting on those headphones and hearing Chester's screams. And it was that connection that came to me. And I forever was so thankful for Lincoln Park for that, because it was such an emotional and hard time. And again, for me to show that, like, again, anyone around you can be struggling and you truly never know. So we have to be, again, like Jonathan Davis said, or like we've said on this podcast, or other people have said on this podcast, we have to have empathy for those struggling. And the thing for me was my grandfather is no longer struggling and he's at peace. And I know a lot of people feel that way with Chester. We shouldn't have to lose people, like we really shouldn't. And it's horrible. And again, I so much respect for Lincoln Park because of that little connection I had with them. And had I not had Meteora and Lincoln Park that day, I don't know. I mean, I know someone could say, oh, maybe it was a different album, but there's something special about Meteora and needing that comfort in that moment. And my heart goes out to anyone that's ever lost anyone to mental illness, because I know also a big reason why Jonathan Davis, his big advocacy, again, like I said, was the loss of his wife, who struggled as well. So again, I don't want to sound cheesy, but my heart goes out to anyone, because I know firsthand, I know you too, Justine, like we all know what it's like and what it's like to struggle. And like you said, I struggle with thoughts too. And I have, and it's a constant fight.
Yeah.
So I think, again, hearing someone like Chester say that, and just having his voice in my life has been so important. Whether, I was the biggest fan towards the end of their career, I gotta take it back a little bit, because just thinking about my grandpa right now. But
Oh, well, I have a silly Lincoln Park story.
yes, okay. Give me bring it back up. Bring it back up.
Bring it up a little bit, okay?
Yeah.
It's something really goofy. This probably the main Lincoln Park connection that I have personally that I can
All
think
right, let's go.
of.
Let's hear it.
Okay, so in high school, probably the main class that I would rebel in was PE. Okay, so for some reason, One Step Closer, I would constantly sing it whenever I was getting angry in PE class. So like we had to like run and people were making me angry, or just like, people being just like way too into the games that you had to do, for
Gee, if you're
sport.
listening, that's you.
Like, nobody ever wanted me on their team because
Yeah,
I wouldn't
same.
try. I
Same, girl.
purposely wouldn't try because I'm like, this
Same.
is stupid. And
Yep.
I would just start singing One Step Closer when I'm like getting so frustrated and angry in PE class. And it's just like, man, I wonder why people thought I was so weird.
Oh my God.
Stomping around singing One Step Closer.
I feel you there though. I can relate to that. And I love that, because it's like music, like you said, like music is just so important like that. Like you had that song that like you weren't maybe saying what you wanted to say, but it was there for you. And I love that. I can picture you, Justine. Like
me with my terrible pixie
haircut. We all had that.
Which because it was not the good pixie haircut where it would just lay flat. It was the bad pixie where I was trying to spike it up with hair glue, and so it was never perfectly spiked, and the back was not good because I focused on the front, and it was hard and crusty from the hair glue spray.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Right.
Really dark black eye makeup, and I was skin and bones because I was just had a really high metabolism, so I was really skinny. Then it was just this weird little girl singing Linkin Park in PE class.
I love it. I love that brought up the mood, because that's hilarious. I love that. And I mean, again, like we didn't touch on a lot of bands. There were so many in the genre, but I mean, obviously you had like Limp Bizkit, Deftones, Korn, Linkin Park. I mean, Slipknot. I know people are gonna fight me on that, but they were kind of, but they're not. And Mudvayne, Papa Roach, Disturbed, System of a Down, POD, Static X, Seven Dust, Cold Chamber, Evanescence was even in there. Contained, Drowning Pool, Rage Against the Machine. Even I'm like. I kind of, I can see it.
Yeah.
I love Rage Against the Machine. Oh my God. Godsmack, Incubus, even though Brandon Boyd wants to say and doesn't like that they're grouped in that.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same as Brett and Boyd. I think it's weird that they're lumped in it.
Yeah. But the album
Yeah.
Science, like I get it, but we have Machine Head, we have Soulfly, Mushroom Head, Breaking Benjamin, G's favorite, for Halo lovers too. Taproot, Kitty, like Kitty. I loved Kitty. I don't even know why I missed that one. Crazy Town, Flyleaf for sure. Edema, Saliva, in this moment was a newer one, but still, Chevelle. It's just Stone Sour again, Corey Taylor, OTEP. But yeah, like I mean, so many. So I mean, just because we didn't cover one, such an important part of our music. But Justine, I gotta know, were there any favorites of yours?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna talk about a few.
All right.
So first of all, obviously, I'm gonna talk about Kitty.
Yes. Yeah.
They were the first all-girl band that I had found that was harder in the genre.
Mm-hmm.
And that just so blew me away as a girl who wanted to be different in a male-dominated scene.
Mm-hmm.
They could rock just as hard as the boys and didn't take anybody's shit.
Oh, I loved
And
Kitty. I loved them so much.
I really, really wanted to emulate that. Some of my favorite songs are Brackish, Get Off, You Can Eat a Dick.
Yeah. Yes.
You Look So Pretty, Run Like Hell, and Mouthful of Poison. And then I'm going to talk about Disturbed.
Oh, yes.
I was really obsessed when they came out. Somebody had given me a copy of The Sickness, and that album cover of just this weird little evil demon little baby.
Yes, I know what you're talking about. I can see
it's
it.
in like this greenish hue, and I played it on pretty heavy rotation for a while. I really loved and still do love System of a Down. I might be pronouncing his name wrong, so bear with me. But Serge Tankian's
Yes, Serge
vocals?
Tankian. Serge
Oh
Tankian.
my god. Okay, so his vocals are just one of the most beautiful vocals in the industry, I feel. And it's just super easy to get just mesmerized by their songs. So of course their songs like Chop Suey, Lonely Day, BYOB, Toxicity, Aerials, Fuck the System, Lost in Hollywood, and Protect the Land are all just amazing. And then last but not least, of course, Korn. Like I got a lot of angst out listening to Korn.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really funny because so my grandma one day brought over this like big, the Trapper Keeper size CD holder. And she's like, somebody put it in my car one day. She's like, I don't know if they thought my car was their car. I don't know, but this is for you guys now, kids. And one of Korn's CDs was in there. And that's how I was introduced into Korn. But like this a pure mistake of somebody somehow getting this big chunk of CDs to my grandma. So
I love that. I
can't remember which CD it was. But yeah, that was my introduction to them. So some of my favorites are Freak on a Leash, Here to Stay, Coming Undone. Oh, sorry, yawn.
You're good, girl.
make me bad and Twisted Transistor. Yeah, it's just nostalgia.
Oh my god, like no, but I'm still so glad you brought Kitty because I was like, I know Justine is gonna be my person because back in the day I loved Kitty. I was like, yes. So I did not include them in my list, but I was like, I know Justine is gonna do this for me and bring them justice. So I'm gonna loved Kitty, wanted to be everything like Kitty. And again, like I loved System of a Down too, and I think they're such an important band when you go back and listen to them for sure. And like again, surprise, one of my favorites is Linkin Park, obviously. you know, songs like Numb, What Have I Done, Faint, Paper Cut, My December, High Voltage, Somewhere I Belong, Breaking the Habit. I just think they were such an interesting band, like we were kind of talking about, and they truly were that new metal of with the rap and metal. And again, I don't think we will ever see another band like them. So forever a favorite. I did put Incubus on here. I don't care, Brandon Boyd and everybody. I'm putting Incubus.
I love
But
Incubus. I just
yeah,
never
no,
connected those.
I don't
So
either. I love Incubus so much. And I think like the, you know, the album Science was huge for me. But I think that yes, I'm gonna include them. Sorry, Brandon Boyd. Deftones, absolutely. Forever and ever, my favorite. My Own Summer, Sex Tape, Be Quiet and Drive, Change. I know, I get it. Everybody likes Change. I don't care. I'm putting it on there. Passenger, because it was on my soundtrack to my life when we did that episode. Digital Bath. Again, I could go on. Like I could literally go on about the Deftones. Like they're just so important, and I forever love them so
they're
much.
amazing.
And, I can't. And then System of a Down, obviously, Loneliest Day, Toxicity, still lives in my mind rent free. Something about that, and I think again, they were just somebody that, oh, what is that one song? Not Deer Dance. Is it Deer Dance? Oh God, hang on, everybody. I gotta like really quick because I wrote it down, but I'm like, I'm gonna like lose it because I have not listened to System of a Down in a hot minute.
I feel like
So
people need to remember too, like sometimes we need to look up the name of songs because back in the day, whenever we would like download songs off of like
right.
LimeWire and stuff,
Yeah.
sometimes too they
Oh,
would be listed under the wrong name.
yeah. Yes, though. I still got it. It was Dear Dance. I love that song. I thank God. But then obviously Corn, my gateway band, much like Good Charlotte was. Corn was my gateway band to so much. And again, my favorites Blind, Freak on a Leash, Falling Away from Me, Dead. And I could just list so many more off issues. That specific album, oh, just I can't. I'm not. I love Jonathan Davis so much. I've even reached out to him to come on. I know it's a long shot, but I love Jonathan Davis, and he has the cool Freak on a Leash, like the his little dog leashes that he makes that are amazing. So if you're a dog lover, I guess I will link that too. Of course, I'm gonna give it up to Limp Bizkit. They were a favorite new metal. I'm not gonna lie. I don't need any street cred. I'm not gonna lie. I love Limp Bizkit. I gotta throw that cover of Faith because that was how I found them, and I still love that. Nookie because again, it was everywhere, and I
It was
know
everywhere.
I love. I still was listening today, just get in the mood, and I was like, I still love this damn song, and I know every damn word to it. And again, I know what it's about, but whatever. I like it. Break stuff because come on, when you are having that day, at that moment, you put that on in your car and you crank up break stuff. Come on, just everybody. It is good. Another song I know word for word, everything. Karaoke, Come My Way, whenever it is, I will sing break stuff. Rollin', because again, I still do those hand movements. And I
That was
just
also
it's
everywhere.
right, like, come
Yeah.
on. Like, at the end of the day, it's
I feel like
everywhere.
that's probably the one I heard the most was Rollin', I think.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
roll. Anyways, everybody, take a look around behind Blue Eyes because it was just different. For them,
I
My
did like
Way,
that one, yeah.
right? And My Way, I got to
Mhm.
give it up to My Way, Walwyn, if you're listening to this, because yes, I put on the My Way with my fiance on G for the wrestling. He enjoyed that. Got to put My Way. But it just is rearranged. I mean, again, I just really liked this music, and I know again, hearing me say Limp Bizkit, I know however you feel. Look, they were
It's
huge.
really popular right now.
Yeah, and they were huge, and
With the younger generation, they are eating it up.
I
So
love
that means something,
that.
okay?
There you go, everybody. That and but I think it's just again, it's safe to say, even if you aren't a fan of this genre, there is no denying this genre is so important for so many reasons. I think anytime we bring up these different genres, it's so important to highlight them. And I hope even if you aren't a fan, you see the importance of this genre and the bands we talked about. This was just so much fun to dig into, and it was just to look back, and this genre is just so important. And I hope if you didn't like these bands, if you're like, why didn't they talk about this? Listen, we would be here all day. We love them regardless, but it's just this was so much fun. And as always, guys, say hi to us on Instagram. We would love to say hi to you at stereo.therapy or at stereo period therapy, however you want to do it. We would love to connect with you all listening, and we appreciate you guys listening. It means so much that you take time out of your day and listen to our little show. I mean, it really means a lot to us. It truly does. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And as for Justine and I, you will hear us next Tuesday, bright and early. All right. Bye, guys.